Thank you very much. I'm calling to order the LCCMR meeting for December 11th. Thank you all for coming. We are going to start with the roll call attendance. Diana, you are in charge.
Gibson.
Present.
Gibson present. Hanson.
Here.
Hanson present. Her.
Here.
Her
Here.
present. Acomb.
Present.
Acomb present. Albrecht.
Albright present.
Albrecht present. Becker is excused. Faber.
Faber present.
Faber present. Green.
Here.
Green present. Heinzman. Heinzman. Collins.
Collins present.
Collins present. Langseth.
Langseth present.
Langseth present. McEwen. McEwen. Moore.
More present.
Moore present. Heichel is excused. Putnam. Putnam.
Just got here.
Putnam present. Reese.
Present.
Reese present. Westrom. Westrom. Currently, there are 12 members present.
Thank you, Diana. Now I'd like to move the minutes from our meeting of November 13th. Yes.
I move the
Senator
minutes.
Hanson.
I move the minutes of November 13th.
Okay, any questions, concerns? Okay, let's see, minutes we can do. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. All right, motion approved. All right, we're gonna, before I start the next one, we are going to move the number 5 item number down to the end, to number 11. So we're gonna skip over that. So do any members have a potential conflict of interest?
Madam Chair, I'm also, as long as we're moving some items on the agenda, I would ask to move item 9, the bill, draft bill recommendations, up where number 7 is. So essentially switching the RFP and the bill. I talked with Senator Westrom, and I know he has a conflict later in the day. So if we could get the bill moved up on the agenda, I think that would be great. So I would ask that we could do that.
And by me, any concern? Okay. Hearing none, let's then move on. Members report conflict of interest. I didn't hear any. Yes. Commissioner Reese.
Yep. Madam Chair, I'd like to declare a conflict of interest on 2025-078 Bradley Hines Agrivoltaics 2.0, as well as 2025-241 Joel Tullochson Foundational Precision Agriculture Data.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other conflicts? More, okay. Commissioner Moore?
I may have a conflict. I haven't read the agenda yet. But I'm listed on a 2025 proposal on moose fecundity. And so if that's going to be a topic of discussion, then I have a conflict on that one.
Okay, thank you very much. When we discuss the bill, that will come up. So, thank you. All right, on to the director's report. Oh, before we start that, Senator McEwen is here. All right, please go ahead.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. A few updates for you. Okay, so posted on today's meeting page are updated final report spreadsheets along with sound bites of final outcomes and links to final reports for projects completed both in 2023 and 2024. As you can see, we only have a few left from 2023 that need to be approved. So we've made great progress on those. The 2024 final reports, we've been also making a lot of progress on those as well. We have 84 of them that have been approved and 53 of them pending. We've shaded out the ones that were on the handout that we gave you at the last meeting so that you can just see the new ones. But again, if you see any in there that you would be interested in hearing a presentation from, please let us know. And also just a reminder that this is just a really, really great way to get fast access to the outcomes for projects that were funded from the Environment and Natural Resources Trust Fund. So I encourage you to explore those documents in the version that we emailed or that are online so that you can get access to the online materials. The Capitol and Senate office building hearing rooms have had some technology upgrades over the last several months, and the House now has jurisdiction over this room, and they will be using today's LCCMR meeting to conduct some offline testing of the cameras in the rooms. So we are only being streamed through one camera over there, but you may see the other cameras moving around and zooming in and zooming out, and please be assured that we are not being broadcast. That is just testing that's going on. We do have one testifier here in person who would like to speak to agenda item 6, which is the strategic plan. I talked with the chair and understand that that testifier will be given time during that agenda item after discussion, but before a vote takes place. A reminder that we have 3 citizen member openings on the commission at the end of this year. All 3 are governor appointees. One is recommended by the Minnesota Indian Affairs Council. That is for a 3-year term. And then the other 2 are 4-year terms. And those are positions currently held by Nancy, Rita, and Jeremy. And then legislative members' terms are also up at the end of this month. And so we do have a special thank you for the members that we know are retiring today or who have retired earlier on this year. And if you are not going to be joining us again next year, we will invite you back at a future meeting to thank you for your service as well. That's it for me, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, concerns for Ms. Nash? Any on sorry, it's hard. All right, hearing none, let's proceed. We're going to go on to item number 6. That is our strategic plan. I want to have our discussion first, and then we'll bring in the mayor from Hibbing, correctly? Is he here or is he going to do Zoom?
Planning on being here in person.
Okay, well, let's keep a lookout for him. Okay, discussion, motion.
And Mike can lead us off if you'd like with this
Oh,
agenda.
yes, Mike, let's start with you. All your hard work.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just going to give a very quick overview so you guys can have a lot of time for discussion. So just to let you know, the strategic plan in front of you today is identical to the plan that I presented at the last meeting, and that was open for public comment. There's one notable exception to that is we have reformatted a little bit to add a few pretty pictures and try to break up the text a little bit, but that is the only change since the last time you saw it. And just as a quick reminder, the strategic plan contains a new vision and mission statement for the NRTF, 7 goals and associated strategies for making expenditures from the NRTF. These goals relate to land, water, fish and wildlife, resiliency, education and outdoor recreation, energy and emerging issues. The strategies under the goals provide for research, demonstration, monitoring, environmental education, planning, restoration, land acquisition, evaluation, implementation of practices, and development of outdoor recreational opportunities. Strategic plan also includes 7 goals and associated strategies related to LCCMR communications and outreach and the proposal solicitation, review, and recommendation process, updated evaluation and selection criteria for proposal review, and finally, measurable outcomes for expenditures. The strategic plan was open for public comment from November 15th to December 1st. Commission received about 80 comments in response, and those comments are found in your meeting packet in the document titled LCCMR Draft Strategic Plan Public Comment. Finally, as you consider approval of the plan today, I wanted to remind you that you will need 11 votes in favor for the plan to be adopted. And that's all I have, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. Any questions? Concerns? All right.
Madam Chair.
Oh, yes, Commissioner Albrecht.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to move adoption of the LCCMR and NRTF Strategic Plan 2025 to 2031.
Okay, there is a motion on the floor.
To my motion,
Yeah, any questions to the motion?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to comment that I appreciate, once again, I'm going to reiterate the work that the subcommittee did to go through the entire, actually, we had 11 or 12 meetings, so it took us a year to review what had been done in 2019 to help update a plan and to really be thoughtful and engaged in the process for reimagining what our mission and vision statement would be, what our goals and strategies would be, that I think will serve the state and the natural resources well into the future. I also want to thank staff for the help that they gave us for this project. I will note that while there have been comments online, in particular, it looked as though the trail community was highly mobilized, both for their comments for the strategic plan as well as on the RFP. And a couple of things. One is that while we do have the goals and strategies listed as, goals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, they're not prioritized in any way. We don't, I don't think this subcommittee identified any that was in a hierarchical way higher than another. So some comments on the public comments said, oh, we should move that goal up because it's not high enough or that kind of thing. They're not necessarily in a prioritized list. The other comment I would say is some folks suggested that you didn't mention this particular type of natural resource, forests, for example. And I will say that we're working hard to create language that would be all encompassing and would recognize that we can't list every type of wildlife or every type of flora and fauna that we have. And so one can imagine that being prescriptive and trying to list everything in that way would be sort of a fool's game because we probably would miss many things. So I just want to re-up the fact that I think this strategic plan is well done. It will serve us well into the future, the next 6 years. And we are required by the legislature to adopt a new strategic plan. So I'm hopeful that the commission members today will agree that this is a good plan and we'll adopt it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Albrecht. Before we proceed with the vote, we have a comment from the mayor of Hibbing, Peter Hyduk.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming, and please come on up. Make your comment. That would be great. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And Mike is working. Mike?
Test. Is that okay?
Yep, I can hear it just fine. Thank you.
Good afternoon, chairs, members of the commission. My name is Pete Hyduk. I'm the mayor of Hibbing, Minnesota. First, I'd like to thank you all of the Legislative Citizen Commission on Minnesota Resources for allowing me to testify this afternoon on your strategic plan. As a city, we testified at the start of your strategic plan. We weighed in with comments throughout the process and are here this afternoon to testify again, as these funding resources are so valuable to all Minnesotans. The purpose of the Environmental Natural Resource Trust Fund that you manage is to provide a long-term, of course, consistent and stable source of funding for activities that protect and preserve and enhance Minnesota. Air, water, land, fish, wildlife, and of course, all the other natural resources for the benefit of our current citizens and the citizens of the future. Hibbing is the largest city in the state of Minnesota. We are 186 square miles of community that resides in northeastern Minnesota with miles of multimodal trails, over 30 public parks, and the Carey Lake Recreational Area, an 1,100-acre park that surrounds Carey Lake, which is a 139-acre park that sits within the city limits of Hibbing. Recreational activities on these trails, parks, and lakes are a core service that we provide to residents of Hibbing, the Iron Range region, tourists and visitors from all over. We are proud of the assets we have within our city limits. However, these assets are in need of funding to be maintained and enhanced for our residents and visitors alike. Which brings me to the next point. Hibbing is also a Justice 40 community under the Climate and Economic Justice Screening Tool due to its designation as a disadvantaged community. This status reflects socioeconomic and environmental challenges that make us eligible for targeted federal investments aimed at promoting equity and environmental justice. As a Justice 40 community, Hibbing is prioritized for federal programs to address these challenges and ensure a just transition to sustainable economic and environmental development. Unfortunately, most projects funded by the ENRT Trust Fund in recent years were to large institutions for research and studies and not recreational development in rural areas. My request to you today is to use Justice 40 as a tool to align the funding from the ERTF with the federally recognized equity lens to ensure rural Minnesota communities like Hibbing can access transformative investments to enhance and maintain our land base to the highest and best use for recreational, economic, and environmental development. With transformative investments from ENRT funding, Hibbing can serve as a model for implementing Justice 40 principles in rural Minnesota settings, demonstrating your leadership in funding equitable, community-driven development. As the mayor of Hibbing, I urge you, the Legislative Citizen Commission on Minnesota Resources, to prioritize equity-focused rural initiatives as an opportunity to drive long-term sustainability and fairness for all Minnesotans. Deploying these precious funds in an equitable way in rural communities such as Hibbing to protect and enhance Minnesota's air, water, land, fish, wildlife, and other natural resources for the benefits of current citizens and again, for future generations. Again, I want to thank you for this opportunity to speak before you today and the opportunity to have a comment. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any questions for the mayor before he leaves? Okay. See any up there? All right. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you
I
for your time.
appreciate it.
Commissioner Gibson, I have a comment on that or question.
Yes. Oh, to the mayor?
Yes.
Okay. Mayor, would you mind returning to your seat?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
I
All right,
apologize. I
Commissioner
wasn't,
Moore, that's
I wasn't
fine.
adept at getting my hand up quickly.
Gotta be quick
Thank you for
then.
that. Thank you for that comment. I think that was extremely well articulated. And I'm curious, and first of all, in principle, I absolutely agree with you. Mechanistically, what do you think that might look like in terms of how LCCMR can adopt the principles and perhaps even the locations of Justice 40 communities in Minnesota in terms of delivery of that funding?
The Justice
Mayor
40% of all federal funding goes to communities that need the funding.
Okay.
And that's why it's a Justice 40. I think it's very equitable. You know, the federal government has looked and done a study throughout the United States and came up with this formula and in this lens to look at how funding is distributed. You know, we are a disadvantaged community. Most communities in rural Minnesota could fall under disadvantage simply because of economic base and many things that are more prevalent in the metro area or your close suburbs. So I think Justice 40, if we could incorporate some type of their vision or their lens on how the funding is used, would be very beneficial for all the communities that don't have all the resources that they need to maintain. And, you know, being from Hibbing, Minnesota, with northeastern Minnesota, you know, you're up in the Boundary Waters area. It's a very popular, look at 35 every Friday, every weekend. It's a trail of people going up to recreate and enjoy. And that's what we're trying to provide for our communities and those of Minnesota. You know, I'm a regional person and a state person. I believe in everything good what we have in our state, what we have in our region, and my community. And I just want to make sure that as people move throughout this state looking for whether you're going up the North Shore just to enjoy the beauty there, or you're going to Boundary Waters or through the Hibbing area or Grand Rapids area, that they still have opportunities that are a little bit closer to home or regional, but also statewide as they travel through. And I just think that Justice 40 they've done a good job of looking at how they distribute their resources.
Are you aware of the new community grants program?
Betsy, yes, we are.
Okay,
Yes.
because that also may be an asset for what
Mhm.
you're talking about.
We leave no stones unturned.
Yeah, that's
And, you know,
good.
I
I'm
mean,
glad to
it's
hear
just
it.
what you have to do nowadays.
All right.
Kids,
All right,
so.
Commissioner Reese.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mayor. Really appreciate your comments. We were able to tour through your region last fall and to see some of the impacts that the Environmental and Natural Resource Trust Fund were able to provide to your community and beyond. And so that's very impressive with the work you've done. I would say, in my opinion, Justice 40 doesn't always catch the underprivileged and socially disadvantaged communities. For example, in Western Minnesota, we see where we have a lot of retired farm couples that have a lot of net worth, but they are able to use that net worth. And besides, there's groups that are underprivileged, and so we don't qualify for Justice 40. So I think your intent is good. I think in goal number 5, we really address that. And as commission members, I think for myself at least, always strive to look for those proposals that really bring that out and support those kind of efforts. So thank you.
I thank you so much for that comment.
Representative Hanson?
Mine is to Commissioner Albright.
Oh, okay. Before that, Commissioner Moore, did you have another question or your?
I did. I perhaps asked my question to the wrong people. This would perhaps be a question to Director Nash or perhaps Chair Hanson or her. If LCCMR were to consider an approach prioritizing with a percentage of funding to go towards underserved communities, such as indicated by the Justice 40 initiative, what might that approach look like in terms of an act through legislature, how we define this more clearly?
Okay, do you want to respond?
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
I can respond to that. And I think Senator Hurd could as well. This is why the constitutional amendment that was reauthorized, there's a statutory provision to develop the community grant program to go to underserved communities. We have in recent years provided a variety of definitions of underserved communities, and particularly to air quality or water quality or other programs. It's my understanding that the community grants program, the discussion at the end when that was adopted was fairly general, and there needs to be additional discussion, but that will in likelihood appropriate between 15 and 20 million annually generated from the trust fund, and will grow as the trust continues to grow. So I would encourage, people who are interested in that. There will be, I can't speak about hearings, but I think there will be continual discussion about how that money is provided, and it would not be through the LCCMR. It is going to be granted out by the DNR. So, but that is a carve out for underserved communities.
Okay. Once again, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Chair.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I-
Or did you have a question?
Yeah,
for?
no, I don't. I just want to add on to Chair Hanson that, before coming here, my staff and I have been talking about, how to strengthen outreach component, even though it's not part of the constitutional language, but language legislation moving ahead will increase enforce our agency to do better outreach. That's the
Okay.
point I want to make. Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good comment. Yeah. And did you have a comment on the motion? Yes, Representative Hanson.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioner Albright. I would support the motion to adopt the strategic plan. And I think I heard you say that maybe, and being part of this with the subcommittee that a number of us were on, that we tried not to be prescriptive of use this particular device or use this particular species or this particular thing, but have it be strategic so that it gives us the broad outlines. So maybe Commissioner Albright, if you could restate that or your understanding as the chair of the subcommittee on the process.
Commissioner Albrecht?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We had a lot of discussions about what should be in and what should be out and what is much more usable, and our decision-making really rallied around the idea that this is a plan that is very usable for our applicants to understand how the commission is thinking with the commission's goals and strategies that are within the plan, but also how we view the importance of adhering to and staying true to the constitutional amendment that outlines the use of the trust fund. And so with that in mind, we really tried hard to be thoughtful about how did we phrase things. And there was a lot of back and forth and wordsmithing, if you will. Staff really helped with that a lot. But I think at the end of the day, our goal was to be true to the constitutional amendment as far as the ENRTF goals and strategies, but also recognize that we have a diverse landscape in our state. We have diverse number of biomes. We have a diverse set of natural resources. We want to make sure those are available for recreation, research, economics, whether that's agriculture or forest products or recreation, tourism. So we recognize that we're trying to write this plan so that it really meets the needs of everyone, and that can be challenging. And so we tended to be take a more broad-based approach than to be prescriptive in a lot of places. Does that help answer your question?
Yes, thank you,
Representative
Madam Chair.
All right. All right, so we have a motion on the floor. Are we ready to take a vote? Any other comments? Okay, with that, let's proceed.
Gibson,
Yes.
Gibson, yes. Hanson,
Yes.
Hanson, yes.
Yes.
Yes. Acom,
Yes.
Acom, yes. Albrecht,
Albright, yes.
Albrecht, yes. Thacker is excused. Faber,
Faber, aye.
Faber, yes. Green,
No.
Green, no. Heinzman, Collins,
Collins, yes.
Collins, yes. Langseth,
Langseth, yes.
Langseth, yes. McEwen,
McEwen, yes.
McEwen, yes. Moore,
More yes.
Moore, yes. Pikel is excused. Putnam,
Yes.
Putnam, yes. Reese,
Yes.
Reese, yes. Westrom, Westrom. Currently,
No.
Westrom, no. Currently, there are 12 yes, 2 no.
Okay, thank you very much. Motion passes. Okay, just as a reminder, we are going to switch 9 with number 7. So we're going to take up the LCCMR recommendation bill next. So to accommodate some commission members. So, and we are going, that includes the appropriations and the contingencies and the extensions. So is there a motion on the floor? Yes, Representative Hanson.
I would move adoption of the draft LCCMR recommendations bill for FY 26 to get it on the floor for discussion.
Okay, thank you. Would it help if we had a little bit of description from staff on that before we get going on our other discussion for it? Yes. Nash, go
Okay,
for it.
members, so I'm gonna go in a reverse order for what's on the agenda here and just start out with agenda 9D, which is a spreadsheet showing the 42 recommended projects that are considered research that are currently undergoing scientific peer review. This is an agenda item that we did not get to at our last meeting. And just a notification to you that these are the projects that are doing the scientific peer review that's required under statute 116P08 subdivision 6. And Lisa from our staff is working diligently on the peer reviews and working with the project managers to make any changes needed to their work plan as a result of that peer review. And please let me know if you would like any additional information about that process. Otherwise, I
please
can move on
proceed.
to the recommendations themselves, and we have a few materials in your packets. One is a pie chart document that summarizes the recommendations by category, both for the large projects as well as the small projects, by proposer affiliation and area of impact. We also have the recommendations in spreadsheet format. And then, of course, we have the recommendations in bill format. And the bill, as Chair Gibson said, also includes contingencies, extensions, and technical corrections. And I can do a review of the bill and point all those items out. First, a couple notes, though. You may recall that the chair on July 31st asked that members submit any contingencies that you wanted added on to projects. We received 16, and then we conducted a survey of members. One of the contingencies received a majority of members in support of that, and so that is included in the draft bill. However, some of the other contingencies that were offered are already conditions of funding, so I can point those out as we go through the bill as well. The DNR Grants Unit has now conducted a financial capacity review for any new applicants that we have not worked with before. 3 of those projects are being recommended to have a fiscal agent or other arrangements to assist the intended recipient with the grant fund management. I can also highlight those as we go through the bill. And then to let you know, the LCCMR staff wrote the draft bill, but it has been reviewed by all of the project managers. We heard back from 100% of them, so they're all okay with what you see here today. We also had them reviewed by House and Senate Council. It has not yet been reviewed by the revisers, so there may be some technical changes yet. So we would appreciate that any motion for approval of the bill included allowance for staff to make additional technical corrections. And then as a reminder, 2 members have conflicts of interest of the type that requires their abstaining from voting on the package. And then per 116P09 subdivision 6, paragraph B, we subtract that number from the total number that are needed to make the recommendation. So usually 11 members are needed to pass a recommendation, but we'll subtract 2, so there will be 9 members needed in order to pass the bill as a recommendation. So with that, I can do a review of the bill. Is that a good idea?
Everybody. All right, with that, we're going to do a review with Ms.
Okay,
Nash
and-
running the show.
Okay, and let me know if you want me to speed up or skip some details, but
Yeah, so people just raise their hands and we can intercede here.
okay. So the total appropriations this year is $103,326,000, and that is for 124 recommendations. The first category is subdivision 3, foundational natural resources data and information. That totals a little over $22 million, and there are 36 recommendations in this section. Some things to point out to you are on page 3, paragraph N, visualizing Minnesota's natural resources with CT scanning. This project envisioned that they might generate some revenue, and so they requested that they have permission to reinvest that revenue if a reinvestment plan is approved in the work plan. And so we provide language in the appropriation law to make that possible. And then the actual reinvestment plan would get approved by the LCCMR when you are approving work plans in the spring following any final action by the legislature and governor. So I will point those. There are several projects that have a request for reinvestment of revenue. I will point those out to you as we go through. On page 5, at the top, paragraph X, foundational precision agriculture data to reduce environmental impacts. There had been a contingency request that all data for this project all data collected be accessible and free to the public. That is already condition of funding for all of our projects, so we did not add that as a special contingency here. Moving on to page 6, subdivision 4 is the water resources category. This is $11,812,000. There are 23 recommendations in this subdivision. A couple things to point out to you here on page 9. Midway down the page is paragraph T, biofilm mediated destruction of PFAS in groundwater. This is one that we've added a requirement for a fiscal management plan. Page 11, paragraph L, adult outdoor education for Minnesota's underrepresented communities. This likewise was one that we're recommending a fiscal management plan, so we put that language in there. This also was the project that got over 9 members supporting a contingency, so we included it here that all fishing tackle purchased with this appropriation must be lead-free. Moving on to subdivision 6 on page 12, this is aquatic and terrestrial invasive species. Originally, there were 3 recommendations in this section, but one of the projects, which was for $38,000, it was an AIS project for public water access cleaning stations. They withdrew subsequent to the recommendation. So we have taken that $38,000 and put it in the emerging issues account for now. And so I can get to that when we get to that section, but this one is now 2 recommendations for $6,713,000. Subdivision 7 is on page 13. This is air quality, climate change, and renewable energy, $11,744,000. There are 7 recommendations in this subdivision. Paragraph F, which starts at the bottom of page 13 and goes to the top of 14. This is innovative solutions to renewable energy from food waste. This one also potentially is generating net income. So we have put the language in here to allow a potential reinvestment plan to be approved. The paragraph right under that, G, fueling the future decarbonizing regional transportation project, also has the net income reinvestment clause. And then subdivision 8, methods to protect or restore land, water, and habitat, is $12,188,000. And that subdivision includes 19 recommendations. The first item to point out to you is paragraph C on that same page 14, that has the revenue reinvestment language added to it. The paragraph below that, paragraph D, native forages, growing drought, and climate resiliency. This is a project that is working with livestock farmers to establish native grasslands on their lands to be used as habitat and forage. Our standard requirements are that any restoration that we fund must be done on permanently protected land, either in fee title or conservation easement ownership. This project is proposing to work with private landowners that do not have permanently protected land. And so we need to exclude this from the requirement. And we have put in here saying that restoration efforts may be undertaken on private land, but must occur on properties enrolled in long-term agreements to protect and maintain the restored areas in conformance with approved restoration and grazing plans as approved in the work plan. The next thing to point out is at the top of page 16, paragraph J. This was also one that we've included the fiscal management plan requirement. Page 17, paragraph S, developing markets for CLC crops. This has an exemption from the income repayment requirement. This is the same exemption that this LCCMR commission provided the previous phase of this project. And that's different from the reinvestment provision because this one is providing grants to multiple providers. And they're very small grants, and with many producers and partnerships, and the tracking of the revenue would be impractical. So it was thought that it was best to just exclude this project from that requirement. Subdivision 9, land acquisition, habitat and recreation is $19,553,000. There are 14 recommendations in this section. On the top of page 18, there is an error. And so paragraph D has some language that starts out with its appropriation is exempt from subdivision 13. That will be stricken. That is an error, so that is no longer in the draft bill. Page 19, paragraph K, there is a revenue reinvestment clause added there. Subdivision 10 is administration, emerging issues and contract agreement reimbursements. This is $7,267,000. There are 4 recommendations in this subdivision. Again, to just point out to you, the emerging issues account includes that $38,000 from the withdrawn project. It also includes the buffer that was previously in here that was part of the member agreement, that if that was not needed, it would be moved to the emerging issues account. Then we move to the standard rider language that goes in our bills, starting with subdivision 11 on page 20. These are all as they have been in prior years, except for a couple changes. One is in subdivision 12 related to data availability requirements. The updates that you see are just updating the nomenclature and the clarity on timing of the requirement of data to be posted on the MinGeo website. Page 23, subdivision 6, you'll see is being deleted. That is because replacement language has now been added to our statute, 116P21 subdivision 3. And then we'll renumber accessibility. And then subdivision 17 is carry forwards and extensions. These are previously funded projects that for one reason or another need additional time to complete their projects. So there's no fiscal impact here. All the projects in paragraph A are 1-year extensions. In paragraph B, all but one of them are 2-year extensions. We're almost to the end. Subdivision 18 is transfers. This transfer is transferring actually previously emerging issues project funding to a specific emerging issues project that this commission approved at our last meeting, 12-1 related to avian flu. We're putting it in here as a transfer. We're also pursuing it under our standard emerging issues processes, but we are doing it in both ways so that whichever happens first, we'll get the project going as fast as possible. Section 3 is a technical correction for a previous year's funded project. This was to add the net income provision in here. The work plan was approved last year with a reinvestment plan, but the legal allowance, but it hadn't been in law, so we were just correcting that. And then the last section 4, this project is doing some sustainable forest work, and they intended to do it within the upper Mississippi River Basin. This inadvertently restricted the work to Hubbard County, so we're just striking that so that they can indeed work all within the watershed. And that is the end of that.
Comments, questions? Yes, Senator Green.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. The question is, are there adequate safeguards in place to continually track the reinvestment funds as they come in and go out? Because if you're going to reinvest them and we do this, they could have those funds forever, actually. Just keep moving them.
You want to, yeah, Ms. Knapp?
Yeah, Chair Gibson and Senator Green, thank you for that question, and staff identified the same need. So we don't have procedures and we would need to do that.
Any other questions? All right, yes, Representative Hanson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Ms. Nash. At the last meeting, we approved emerging issues for responding to bird flu. And we have that in the bill. Could you maybe describe where that is at and that kind of the authority question of where we are with that?
Ms. Nash?
Chair Gibson and members. So again, the commission did approve that with greater margin than is required. So that has been approved by the commission. What needs to happen next is that the governor needs to approve it. The project manager needs to develop a work plan. The commission gave staff authority to review and approve that work plan when it is completed. Once we have the work plan approved and the approval from the governor, then we would proceed to process the actual transfer. With the emerging issues account, that transfer is more complicated than it is through our standard appropriations. So we understand that this issue is actually bubbling up right now. It's a serious issue. And so we can try to expedite that, the processing of that to get that funded as soon as possible.
Okay, follow-up?
Madam Chair, so Ms. Nash I hate to ask about chicken and egg on the bird flu question, but the work plan comes after the governor's signature, or is the work plan needed before the governor's signature?
Ms. Nash?
Chair Gibson, what we do is we try to take advantage of the time while the request is out to the governor. We have the project manager working on the work plan, so we try to do a parallel track there, and then it can happen in either. We wouldn't want to approve the work plan until there's authority. So the governor's approval comes first, and then approval of the work plan.
Okay, follow-up?
And Madam Chair and Ms. Nash, so the work plan would require the commission's approval. Is that correct?
Ms. Nash?
Traditionally, but in your motion to approve the project, you provided staff authority to approve it without having to come back to the commission.
Okay, follow-up?
And Madam Chair, and the reason I'm asking these questions is to have a clear understanding of the authority to move this forward, because it seems that every day we're getting additional information about the seriousness of this. You know, and I would just say anything that we as legislators could do, and I think it would be on a bipartisan basis and working with the executive branch to try to move this appropriation as quickly as possible. We're willing, we're willing to try to do that. So I know I've talked with Senator Westrom about that and Senator Herr, but anything we need to do to make it go, we're happy to do that.
Okay. Other questions? Yes, just a minute. No, okay, Senator Green.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. To that, the question comes up, and obviously I wasn't here at the last meeting. I apologize for that, but was there a motion at the last meeting to separate this part out from the rest of the bill and then move it quickly? And is that even possible? If we take this section out and say, otherwise we're waiting for approval for the whole bill, I would assume, which isn't going to be till after January 15th. So I'm just asking the question.
Good question. You want to answer that, Ms. Nash? I mean, we did approve it to move fast, and we tried to find two different avenues for it, which I think is what she's addressing. Because you're right, it does, that could get hung up with the major bill. So I think what we're trying to do is work both methods and see which is the fastest at this point.
So,
Yes.
so Madam Chair, then, so there is an avenue to do that legally through our process.
Yes.
Do we need to take any actions today then? Or were they taken at the last meeting?
Good question. Yes, we don't.
No further action is needed from you right now to provide that authority. So it's just a matter of priorities, and after this meeting, and this can get pushed to the top of our list, which just means we will not get to some other things, but I'm hearing that this is urgent. So we will do that.
I think that's probably the case. Any comments from the people on Zoom? I don't see any. Okay. Any questions on the bill? As I'm assuming we have our two authors here, so questions? Yes.
I just want to make comment that we need to make haste, but carefully at the same time. I'm looking for partnership in the Senate as well. So I see the urgency of this. And so hopefully that, that we can get it through as a whole package. Yeah.
Okay.
That's my preferred option.
Okay, and soon, I hope. Okay, other comments? I just had, just so we know, the fiscal agent issues on 3 of these projects. They are aware of it and how to deal with it and whatnot. Correct, Ms. Nash?
Chair Gibson, that's part of what we do is after the fiscal capacity reviews have been completed, we circle back with those project managers to have those conversations, and those are underway.
Okay.
In most cases, having a fiscal agent does require funding. And so that is an issue that those project managers will be looking to reconfigure their budget to provide those coverage of those costs. It can be put in our budgets.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments before the motion? All right. Representative Hanson, you wanna reinstate your motion?
I would renew my motion to approve the draft trust fund appropriation language to be jacketed as a bill for introduction.
Okay,
And with staff to make additional technical changes.
And staff to have the authority to make additional technical changes, typos, and any other corrections as needed.
okay. Seeing no more questions, let's start with the vote.
Gibson,
Yes.
Gibson, yes. Hanson,
Yes.
Hanson, yes. Her,
Yes.
yes. Acom. Acom,
Yes.
Acom, yes. Albrecht,
Albright, yes.
Albrecht, yes. Backer is excused. Green,
No.
Green, no. Faber,
Faber, aye.
Faber, yes. Heinzman. Heinzman. Hollins,
Collins, yes.
Hollins, yes. Langseth,
Langseth, yes.
Langseth, yes. McEwen,
McEwen, yes.
McEwen, yes. Moore,
More abstain?
Moore abstain. Pikel is excused. Putnam,
Yes.
Putnam, yes. Reese,
Abstain.
Reese abstain. Westrom,
Westrom, yes.
Westrom, yes. Currently, there are 11 yes, 1 no, and 2 abstain.
Good. Thank you very much. The motion prevails. Thank you. Okay, so as we mentioned before, we switched a couple of these item numbers. So we now will go back to our let's see, item on there is item 7. So this is our request for proposal. Oh, Mike, did you want to, we're on to item 7. Mike, would you like to say something? I'm sorry. Mr. Capana, please make your comments.
Yes, Madam Chair. If you'd like, I can give you a quick overview of the 2026 RFP in front of you today.
We would like that. Thank you.
All right, great. So in your packets, you should all have a copy of the 2026 RFP for your consideration today. I'm just going to walk through this page by page so it's show you where the changes are from the 2025 version. So on page 1, there's really no changes, but just to reiterate, there's going to be $103 million available through the 2026 RFP. On page 2, once again, there are no substantive changes. You will see that the dates are still TBD in red. Once we approve the calendar, we will fill in those dates for you. Moving on to the page 3, the 2026 funding priorities. As discussed at the last meeting, these funding priorities have been updated to reflect the goals and strategies in the new strategic plan and the recommendations of the strategic planning subcommittee. There have been no changes to this text since last time you saw it and we discussed it at the November meeting. So just to let you know, it reads exactly the same as it did at that November meeting. So I'm just going to move on from there to page 7, which is the requirements section of this. So the funding requirements, there are no new requirements, but we have updated language to clarify some issues. I can provide specifics on that if members would like, or return to it at some point if you have questions about those changes, but they were mainly just to clarify certain language, no new requirements.
Let's wait till the end of the.
Okay. So then moving on, page 9, the evaluation criteria have been updated to reflect the new strategic plan. On page 10, the guidance on allowable expenses. Once again, we have updated some of this language to provide greater clarity, and we can provide more details if you would like. On page 11, the constitutional language has been updated to reflect the constitutional amendment that was approved in November. And then on page 12, we've just made some minor changes there to mainly adding the blue box you see at the bottom that says visit our 2026 proposal and funding process page for additional resources. So that sort of summarizes the changes from the 2025 RFP. I will also note that this did go out for public comment. We received about 72 comments back in response to that public comment.
Okay. Any of those comments worth discussing, or are they redundant or?
Madam Chair, many of the comments were very similar to what we received for the strategigic plans. There were a number of comments related to trails. There were a couple comments related to your discussion at the last meeting. But it was very similar to what you saw in the strategic plan public comments.
Good. All right. Thank you. Commissioner Albrecht.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks for that overview, Mike. Along with the strategic plan, the subcommittee on strategic planning also reviewed the RFP. And given that we had reimagined the goals and strategies of our strategic plan, it was incumbent on us to reflect on the RFP and to update that based on the changes we had made in the strategic plan so that they really went hand in hand together. I think, you know, the thing that I want to just highlight about this is two things. One is that, once again, the funding priorities are not ranked in any hierarchical way. We did try to be kind of broad-based and what the items that are listed under each of the different priorities, you know, imagined. We may have fallen short on some. I know there was one comment in particular that I read on the public comment about not really addressing climate change enough. So it's possible that that's true. But our goal really was to think about what did we have in the strategic plan and how did that relate to what we are wanting to fund. And that, of course, always relates back to the constitutional amendment and our requirement for how we spend the environmental trust fund dollars. So wanted to mention that. And then also the evaluation criteria. We used to have like a bulleted list of 10, I think, maybe 11 criteria that we used. And this evaluation criteria, which is on page 9 of the updated RFP, is not a whole lot different from that bulleted list, but it's maybe categorized a little bit differently so that we, and this was based on a survey actually that went out to the members. How is it that you review projects? What are the things top of mind for you when you're looking at projects? And so those top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 were the ones that most commission members said that they are thinking about when they're reviewing projects. So funding priorities, that it responds to the funding priorities, that it has natural resource benefits, that it's the proposal has outcome and results that are clearly identified about what's going to happen and what will we know at the end of this proposal, that the proposer has the capacity based on the application or past performance to do the project, and that the project application itself is complete and clear. And this also, I will just add, helps our staff do a good job of reviewing the projects and helping us understand, does it meet the goals of the constitutional amendment and our funding priorities. So it's very helpful for staff that those are some of the things that we're going to be using as evaluation criteria. But then finally, we did not take out any of the other criteria that we've historically used. But maybe there are additional factors that are not ranked as highly in members' minds when they're reviewing projects. Those include information and dissemination, whether it's going to increase the knowledge base or have additional information for our constituents and citizens. Whether it's innovative, is it timely, and are they ready to do the project? Are they prepared and have the assets or the organization and structure in place to get it done? Will it leverage additional funding? You know, we don't require applicants to have additional match or grant match or funding match like many state grants do, and capital improvement bonding issues require. We don't require that. We like it. And so that might be something that some members would lift up as a criteria they like to see. And then finally, the collaboration coordination. This is an effort really, I think, to help us understand how do we maximize the use of our funding, our applicants partnering with agencies or other organizations or citizen groups or communities that can really enhance the project and make it much more robust and powerful. So that's a review of the RFP. You know, there's also some additional guidance in here about the allowable expenses and also the statutory expenses, and then, or I should say, statutory requirements on expenditures, and then how to apply. So we worked on this quite a bit, much like we did the strategic plan, to put into place what we think is some clarity, some honesty and transparency for applicants to really understand, here's what we are looking at funding. We want to make sure that people have the opportunity to really understand well what our funding priorities are and what commission members are looking for when we're evaluating those RFPs. So with that, I would move the adoption of the RFP. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Commissioner Albrecht. Are there questions for the motion? All right, Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm looking on page 11 of 15, and the comments by Ducks Unlimited on inclusion of ways to improve energy planning. On easement solicitation, and I think what they're asking there is when there's the siting of wind and solar rather than the siting of an easement. So just I think that's the way I'm reading that. So not so much an RFP question, but likely a policy determination with permitting or with citing questions.
So in your comment, are you looking for an answer or something to be careful of when you're doing the bill, or what? Is it something that Commissioner Albrecht could answer?
Madam Chair, my reason for bringing that up is I think it's probably more appropriate for the chairs of the respective committees relating to wind and solar siting rather than an RFP. Rather than the RFP. That's the way I'm interpreting it.
Okay. Good. Thank you. Other comments? Yes, Commissioner Reese.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In response to Chair Hansen's comment, I just want to reiterate that or mention that that's already included in the PUC permitting process.
Yeah.
And you know, it's one of those dilemmas about when we're trying to address changing climate and changing the energy sources that we run across, that there's a balance there. And I think that's been appropriately addressed already. Thank you.
Okay. Other comments, questions? All right, Commissioner Albrecht has a motion on the floor.
Madam Chair?
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't see your hand up. I apologize. Yes. Senator Westrom.
Madam Chair, I would be interested in moving an amendment to modify one of the areas we talked about last meeting. And I worked with Senate Council in the meantime to just get some simple language to offer. And it's basically on the bottom of page 4. And I just probably ask Mike or else Ben Stanley has the language. He's there, but basically want to change the statement. Instead of saying baseball fields or splash pads are generally not allowed, make it a statement that would be in the affirmative, that would rather say, if you're going to include these projects, they need to show the connection or benefit to the natural resources or outdoors. And so I'd let Michael restate that for the commission, and then to look forward to some discussion.
All right, Mike and panel. All right, I'm sorry. Nash, you were having your hands go back and forth.
Sorry, Chair Gibson. I believe the language would then read baseball fields, basketball courts, splash pads, playground equipment, and other recreational facilities and infrastructure must improve or enhance natural resources or users' experience with natural resources in order to be eligible.
Comments? Senator Westrom.
Madam Chair, I'd be open to some discussion. I guess it says the same thing. Basically, it just doesn't have language right from the beginning that, especially a beginning or a new or a smaller entity that isn't familiar with this process, doesn't read into that it's basically excluded or not allowed, except for this narrow possibility. And so this is just flipping it and stating it more in the affirmative, that they have to include that if they're going to have that as part of their project. So I hope we could come to agreement on that. And I think it'd just be a little easier, more user-friendly for those looking over the RFP and considering projects that they might want to submit for.
Commissioner Reese.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to support Senator Westrom's amendments. One reason I think in particular is that it may move the question from whether it's eligible from the staff to the commission. And I think that's appropriate that the commission be able to take a look and to see if whatever's proposed actually does meet the criteria. Thank you.
Representative Hanson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and my questions for Senator Westrom, and I'm keeping in the back of my head the constitutional language for environmental protection, but I wonder if the additional 2 words of prior to baseball fields, environmental components of, for example, I could see that if you added solar on the top of a dugout, if the solar portion is an environmental component or innovative or demonstration, potentially it being there. But a baseball field in itself is not statutory or constitutionally provided. But if you have some components of those that are environmental, that are innovative, this is kind of what we did, Senator Westrom, with wastewater, is that when there were demonstrations, when there were innovations, that we allowed that rather than the actual wastewater. So that's my question for Senator Westrom.
Senator Westrom.
So Representative Hanson, so I guess I'm not clear on the language you're wondering about. I mean, ultimately, I think our language, or this language would say, in essence, the same thing. It's just telling people they affirmatively have to include that in their proposal. if they're going to request for something like this. So does that answer your question, or restate what words you're thinking otherwise?
Representative Hanson?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'm trying to find something that maybe is acceptable. So would take the affirmative of that it must include your language, but putting in front of the list of things that environmental components of et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and infrastructure shall improve. So it is just clear that we are funding the environmental components of, rather than the entity. That is what I'm asking for your consideration, and any other members. I know there are a variety of opinions on this.
Okay, Senator Westrom.
So Madam Chair, and I'd be interested, let's let some others talk, but
Okay,
Representative Hanson, just read, can you restate that whole sentence, how it would read then with your language in it? Or staff do that, just so I
right.
can get a
That's,
full picture.
Representative Hanson?
Madam Chair, before
Okay. Yes, Senator Hurst, sorry.
Chair Hanson answer, I just want to ask Senator Westrom a question first, and maybe see if it could be put into place. I recall last conversation, we talked about accessibility. If we develop the language, would that, your language and possibly language of Representative Hanson, would that inclusive of our minority communities, or our community that need accessibility?
Senator Westrom?
I think it would. I mean, I think it would be it would be fit right within the proposals. Some might be more targeted towards even specific accessibility, but they need not be only accessibility issues. I mean, for a person with a disability, but I think it would be, to answer your question.
Okay, thank you. And I'm saying that because English is my second language, so I want to make sure it's inclusive enough.
Yeah. Okay, all right, thank you, Senator. Representative Hanson?
And maybe if council wants to, I know they've been looking, but I don't know if they've been writing over there, but so right after the asterisk, put environmental components of baseball fields, basketball courts, splash pads, playground equipment, and other recreational facilities and infrastructure shall improve or enhance natural resources or users' experience with natural resources. So it's the components.
Nice.
Okay,
Yeah, I guess, I mean, Representative Hanson, components gets to be a kind of a question. Okay, now what are we talking about? A solar panel on top of the dugout, or I don't know. I think we'd be better off getting a proposal, and then we decide if it's not within the marks of the trust fund and the constitutional language. But I guess the word components maybe strikes me as maybe extra limiting for the imaginations that might go on there, but maybe there's a better word or different word as we talk about it. So that's just my first reaction. Do appreciate your commentary on it. Let's hear what others say, I guess, and then that's just my
Representative
first
Hollins?
thought.
Representative Hollins?
Thank you. I just want to make sure, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, wonderful, perfect. So I'm asking because I'm trying to wrap my head around this, and I know that part of the reasoning for having the language in there is to ensure that that people aren't applying to something that it wouldn't qualify, right? Like, we're trying to make sure that we're following the constitutional guidelines for what we can actually do. And I'm guessing that part of the reason we want to do that is because it creates additional burden on staff when people apply for things that then need to be weeded out. And don't actually meet the criteria. Is that part of the logic behind it, or is it strictly just to like make sure that we're following the constitutional guidelines?
Thank you, Representative Hollins. Yes, we do want to follow the constitutional language. And I do think we want to give some guidance to staff. So I would agree on both of those. And this caused quite a bit of conversation at our last meeting. And the only example that I could bring up is at Bellwin Conservancy. And they have a football and soccer field there, and all the lights are run by solar. The dugout is run by solar. They have a solar panel there to describe what solar panels are. Their snack area is run by solar. It is surrounded by trails with education materials all about the prairies. And then if you really want to get great, you can go across the street and look at bison. So I think that is a prime example. But I do think that I think it's the Environmental Trust Fund just passed by a large margin. And I think we need to make it easy for the public to get behind some of these things and the staff. And I think this just clouds what we're trying to do. So that is my opinion and my example. So if you have a follow-up.
Yeah, so I guess that was kind of my point, was that if we're trying to bring clarity to the situation, I'm not sure. I'm not necessarily against the amendment, but I'm not sure that it brings more clarity versus less clarity. And so as we're moving forward and trying to make sure that we're creating a system and process that is very clear and accessible, I just wouldn't want anybody to spend a lot of time and energy applying for something that therefore wouldn't actually meet the criteria, and then they'd be wasting their time and staff money and all sorts of things. So that would be my only concern. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Reese.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There was another example, Glacial Ridge Elementary School had proposed playground equipment as part of a natural resources educational walk or area. And so I think that's one that might stick out. The other example, I think, is from our local standpoint, some riverbank was restored from a beach back into natural riverbank at Pomme de Terre Park in Morris, near Morris. And in lieu of that, a splash park was built. So I guess the question becomes then, and I think this is a question the commission should determine, if there's a proposal similar to that, does that meet the threshold of being enhancing natural resources when you're restoring riverbank and then providing another option that the community can utilize? So I think those were the questions that are probably worth at least taking a look at at a commission level, see if it actually is worth funding or not. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, Senator Western.
Madam Chair, Representative Hanson, what would you think of the word of aspects instead of components? And we're just, but I think it just broadens it a little bit more, just as environmental aspects of baseball splash parks, which I think is a little what you're trying to get at, but components to me is maybe viewed as much smaller or narrower, but I think the two words maybe try to get at where we're trying to talk about. What would you think of that word as part of what you would suggest? And
Representative Hanson.
First, I'd like, we've got a number of commission members who haven't spoke on this, and I know we're, I'd like a little more input. I would ask council, Senator Western, we have to deal with plain language. And so components, I think, is plainer than aspects. Criteria, items.
Yeah.
Items might be clearer, but if we could hear from members just on this general topic, I think if we can't find compromise, we could maybe just go with the status quo of the RFP. But I'd like to hear from folks while while there's wordsmithing, I know the Senate and House counsel are talking, so.
All right, thank you. Senator Putnam.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Just on the question of wordsmithing, smithing and precision. I think there's a sort of strategic need for a variety of ambiguity here. And that components actually does sound like very sort of concrete technical dimensions of whatever proposal might be, whereas elements or dimensions might work a little bit better. At least that's my instinct. Because I understand the reservation about component because it sounds like, like a baseball bat is a component. That's a technical part of the practice, but an element is a little bit more fungible and applicable in different ways. I don't have great feelings one way or the other toward the amendment, but in terms of the language, I think that element or dimension might help.
Okay, thank you. Senator McEwen, we have legal staff here. Can we hear from them first?
That's what I was just gonna ask, if we could have a level setting of where we're
good.
with them. Thank you.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Okay, we have House and Senate legal counsel here. And we're gonna, pardon? We're gonna put the question to you, if that's okay, to get your opinion on this.
Madam Chair, Ms. Taylor and I have been talking on the side while you've
Wait,
been
would you
talking.
identify yourself? please?
Yes, Ben Stanley, Senate Nonpartisan Staff.
Janelle Taylor, House Nonpartisan Staff.
Thank you.
We've been talking on the side while you've been talking up front here, and we just are in agreement that the language you're talking about in Senator Westrum's motion would say currently, I just want to say it again, baseball fields, basketball courts, splash pads, playground equipment, and other recreational facilities and infrastructure must improve or enhance natural resources or users' experience with natural resources in order to be eligible. So whether you end up choosing elements or aspects of or components of, if you put that in front of that list, what you're saying is that only that smaller subset has to improve or enhance natural resources or users' experience with natural resources. And so I think while you're talking about what the best word is to use, what you'd actually be doing if you add a qualifier at the beginning of that sentence would be, by implication, saying that the other components, the non-environmental components, elements, aspects of these projects do not have to improve or enhance natural resources. And we're not sure that that was your intent.
Yes, okay, thank you. Janelle, did you have anything? All right,
Madam Chair,
Taylor, I'm sorry.
we're in agreement on this, so.
Okay, thank you. Representative Hansen?
My intent would be that from that, those specific items that are environmental are what are eligible for funding from the Environmental Trust Fund. So that bonding, local government funding, cash, any other funds would pay for the other items, but the item that is being used in the Environmental Trust Fund is the environmental component to meet the Constitution. That a baseball, otherwise we as the commission will be debating, does this baseball diamond provide an environmental protection? But we would have the discretion that if a proposal came forward that said we want to put solar on the dugouts and operate the whole thing out of solar, or we're going to use innovative wastewater that's never been tried before to handle that, that would be what would be before the commission rather than the baseball diamond.
Okay, you have a comment on that, or do you want to take another question?
Madam Chair and members, if that was the intent and there was an agreement with the commissioners, we could, help you craft some language, but I think you would want to structure the sentence differently.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Reese.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On behalf of partisan staff, I just have a quick question for you. If you were to take your language that Mr. Stanley had mentioned and just add must meet constitutional requirements by improving or enhancing. Does that satisfy the concerns of meeting constitutional intent?
Who wants to take that?
Madam Chair,
ahead,
Commissioner
Stan.
Reese, I think that that might clarify it, but that's sort of any project that you're going to appropriate money has to satisfy the constitutional requirements. And so, you know, the RFP, the purpose of it, I think is just to tell the world what kind of projects you all are willing to consider. It's not to determine finally the eligibility under the Constitution for any particular project. So I think I think that would clarify it for me, but I'm not, it's really whether or not it satisfies
Yeah.
you all, and and whether it accurately describes the type of projects that you as a commission want to hear. And so I guess what I'm saying, Commissioner Reese, maybe a little farther than the question you asked is, it seems like you all are trying to have a discussion about what is constitutionally permissible in a sentence that's really designed to answer a different question, which is what kind of projects do you all want to even hear?
Right.
I don't know if that simplifies it, and I don't even know if that answers your question.
Follow up? Okay. Any other questions? Senator McEwen, you had your hand up. Was that?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I appreciate all of this discussion and input. I also share the concerns that the language as written could dissuade some applicants from even making an application initially, who may feel that there are ways that are important that link their project to the constitutional purposes of the work that we do with this funding. So I do favor making some type of change that would make it clear that those people who do, those applicants who do feel that their project would further the goals of this funding are encouraged to apply. My proposal would be just to add a little sentence at the end of what is already written, just making it clear that if applicants do feel that their project would further the purpose and goals of this funding, that they're encouraged to apply or to seek out discussion and as to whether or not their project would meet the goals. Just because I do think that there are some great project areas where I can certainly conceive of, you know, I have given the example in some side conversations to people. We just had a wonderful project approved for some funding up in Duluth to improve a ski chalet that's historic and brings hundreds of kids out onto the slopes and out into the woods every year enjoying Duluth. And it's a great project, but I have a really hard time understanding. I could see the same sort of arguments being made for some type of baseball field if it's situated in the right way and brings people out and doesn't cause the kinds of harm that we might be worried about. So I wouldn't want people to just not apply depending on what their project looks like. And I think that's important. And I would like to make sure that we're not dissuading people from applying.
Okay, Representative, do you have any comments? Representative Hanson? Oh. Sorry, Commissioner Albrecht, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate the discussion. I think sometimes we get into a bubble and we think we're the only game in town, but let's face it, there are a lot of state dollars available for park funding through the DNR, local grants that are smaller, but also regional grants through the outdoor funding through the constitutional amendment or I should say the sales tax amendment. So we're not the only game in town. So if folks aren't able to meet the criteria within the LCCMR Environmental Trust Fund RFP, they are likely able, they would likely be able to meet the criteria for smaller park funding that is available through other state agencies or other organizations. So just as a reminder, it's not the be all end all for us to fund all the baseball fields and splash pads and parks and even trails for that matter. But I do want to remind us that I think there have been some really good comments. I in particular, Senator McEwen, the idea that we want people to think very intentionally about their application and look at the constitutional amendment on one hand, and here's what I want to do. And do I think that having teams show up at the ball field, play ball, get in their vans, and go to McDonald's is really enhancing their experience with the outdoors? Maybe that case could be made. But I do want to also be sensitive to the idea that Representative Hollins mentioned, and that is making good use of not only staff time, but LCCMR time as well. So the RFP is a way for us to be, it's kind of the first filter of, does this meet the criteria of the constitutional amendment? And if an applicant feels that they can make that connection, maybe that is something that we can look at. But I do just finally want to remind us all that we're not the only game in town as far as funding for park and outdoor recreational infrastructure. Thanks.
Thank you. Representative Hanson?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I think this is a good discussion. My purpose for raising that is to try to find something that we can agree on across a variety of opinions. I think if we said the RFP is an annual process, if we had it so it is the environmental items of a project are for consideration, that RFPs came in with that, and we look at that and how that comes in, the commission next December can look at how that responds. I think what I'm attempting here is to try to go halfway to Center Westrum so that we can make sure we're doing the Constitution, but also trying to be innovative and creative with environmental protection. And so it is easier to measure specific items. And maybe that's that those items would be, or items are eligible. And so we've put for a number of years criteria to have smaller appropriations, which could be applicable for this.
Okay. Representative Acom?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and excuse me, thanks to everyone for the good conversation. What I will say is I think it's pretty clear that Minnesotans value the environment and they want us to protect and enhance it. And I think the recent referendum was indication of that. And as we've heard some people talk about this particular issue today, I think I heard somebody say there's a need for ambiguity, or it could be a benefit to have ambiguity. And I actually find that a little bit concerning. I think that we don't want to make a slippery slope that is going to take the funds and the resource that is stated to protect and enhance our environment and start applying it to things that don't. And there's been discussion about baseball fields, and there's been discussion about splash pads or other recreational sources. And I'm not trying to say those are bad things, but as Commissioner Albrecht said, there are lots of sources of revenue, whether it's local or state and funds, county funds as well. And nothing in this language or in our current process prevents folks from applying who feel as though they can make the argument that their project or their proposal enhances people's experience interacting in the wilderness or in the environment and the benefits that come from that. And so I don't know that we need to broaden our scope to encourage more applications from organizations or from people or projects that are kind of leaning on that slippery slope. I think if there's an argument to be made, it can be made within the existing confines of our current proposed RFP. So I'm not supportive at this point of the amendment, and but I'm still open to the conversation as it continues. I see there are more people that want to make comments, so certainly open to the continued conversation, and appreciate that we're having it. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Senator Putnam?
Thanks, Madam Chair. And to Rep. Beckham's point, I wasn't going to address this, but I was the dude who said ambiguity, and I just for a little bit of clarity on my part. No, what I said strategic ambiguity, and by what I meant that is a sort of categorical precision, but within that category, a little bit of inclusiveness. That's the sort of distinction I would make in terms of those use of those terms. But this actually seems not that difficult to me to a certain extent. Perhaps I'm missing the forest for the trees the forest, but it sounds like we're trying to come up with language that says, if you want to build a baseball field, cool, but LCCMR will pay for the grass, but not the bat. And it seems like that kind of precision in the language actually would be helpful and make things more efficient. Am I missing something else, or is that language elsewhere in the RFP so that it's irrelevant or redundant at this point? Because just at that basic level, if that's what we're talking about, that kind of makes sense to me and seems like it would make things easier for everybody.
Thank you, Senator. All I could add there is we have funded the Glacial Ridge School, and we have funded that item in Duluth, the chalet, without this. And so I'm just wondering if we even want to include it. So we seem to be able to do that without having it, and they come in on the merit of what they are judged as compared to other projects. So I'm still trying to figure out why don't we just drop it? So at any rate, Senator Westrom?
Well, Madam Chair, to your question is because the current language is going to dissuade at least the less sophisticated applicants, in my humble opinion.
Right.
And I happen to represent Glacial Hills, and but for my strong urging at a visit touring the school, I don't think they would have even applied either. And so it's the little people that I'm trying to stand up for, and we've got them all over here in rural Minnesota.
Yep.
There's even some in the metro. It's not the regional park folks. It's not the DNR. It's not the U of M that have lawyers working on this to figure out how they can get their share of it. It's the smaller, less sophisticated applicants. And so I'm just trying to change the language so it's more clear. And it just states that if you're going to have something like this, I'm just trying to keep it simple, but it must include this. Rick, Commissioner Hanson, I'm wondering if we'd move your words and take Senator Putnam's idea of element and put the word environmental element right after, I just had it, I was looking at it, now I flipped the page, but right before the word natural resource, and instead of at the beginning, which staff talked about the unintended qualifier it might be, but I think we're talking the same thing. So use my language, put your word environment, use the word element right in front of the word natural resources, if that kind of covers what I think you're saying, and I think what we're talking about, and it gives the applicants the idea that we just want you to specify these environmental elements of your project, because that's going to make it easier for us. And I've been on this commission longer than probably half of us, at least. There's many times we do get applications, and staff, that's what they do, a great job for us. I mean, they often flag parts of a proposal that aren't maybe constitutional, and that's what they bring forward to us. But I don't want to dissuade the applicants right up front. And I just think the current language is just a little too negative, or you have to kind of read through it to see that, oh, well, maybe I could apply for this. And that's what I'm trying to achieve here. So hopefully that's welcome idea to move along here, but I think it would just be a better way to phrase it for the less sophisticated applicants, for sure.
Representative Hanson?
Thank you, Madam Chair and Senator Westrom, and I appreciate the discussion among all the members here. I think and if council, I want to make sure that it's the environmental elements that are funded, that if there's an RFP, if there's a response to the RFP, that somebody can respond that with a proposal that is an environmental element of these items so that it meets the Constitution. And that provides the clarity, I think, Senator Westrom, for the small applicants, because then they know what it is, they can cost that out. And it could be additive to other items for example, if the people of South St. Paul want to pass a park referendum and there's an additional cost for putting solar on a dugout at the park, then that's what comes forward. But the park referendum pays for the ball diamonds or the park. And I think that would provide I don't really want to go there, but I also see a divided commission, and if this is one way where we could meet maybe and have this adopted for the RFP to provide the clarity for the applicants, reduce the responsibility of the staff and the commission on sorting it out.
Any comments? Ms. Taylor?
Madam Chair and members, we've been sort of going through some possible suggested language that might help. Get back to it here. It'd be generally only elements or aspects or whatever you guys decide of baseball fields, basketball courts, splash pads, playground equipment, and other recreational facilities and infrastructure that improve or enhance natural resources or users' experience with natural resources are eligible.
Okay, I didn't hear all of that. Could you could you restate it for us?
Sure. It'd be generally only elements or aspects, whatever you guys decide on that term, of baseball fields, basketball courts, splash pads, playground equipment, and other recreational facilities and infrastructure that improve or enhance natural resources or users' experience with natural resources are eligible.
Okay.
So there's just a few word
yeah.
tweaks.
Okay. All right. Did everybody hear that? Okay. So, okay, go ahead. I don't know if his hand's still up. Okay. Senator Westrom, did you have a comment on that?
You're muted.
Oh, okay. Okay, you're muted. Senator Westrom? Could you unmute?
Oh, now can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, sorry about that. I said, I think we're getting there. I think that's generally the idea. It's more of a positive or an affirmative statement. And so I'd welcome staff to maybe do a final tweak on it, Ben or Janelle. And, but I think it brings back the word generally, but it states it in the affirmative that we just want to, so I think it's a positive movement. Open to other people's thoughts on it.
Okay. I don't know. Yeah, Representative Hanson?
Senator Westrom, if you could accept that, I think we could take the win here and it would provide some opportunity for funding. I should note, I did have a member text me that maybe solar panels on the baseball field might not be the best example if the balls go, if we have a foul ball, but pollinator gardens, other things, wastewater, rain gardens, ways of dealing with water on those sites. I think those are all eligible. Just wanted to get that on the record.
You can put the solar panels away from the dugout. All right. Any other comments? Mike, did you have no? Okay. Okay. I think we have, Yes, Senator Western.
If staff could just capture restate that, I think we're about there. So,
Okay.
and
Before we do that, thank you, Senator Western. And we'll do that. Commissioner Albrecht, did you have a comment?
I would just say that I think council has come up with a generally acceptable phraseology, if you will, and I think that would be I think I would support that, and I would hope that others would support it as well.
Okay. Senator Western, would it help? I'm sorry, why would we read it? Yes, I was gonna ask them. We're gonna reread that for us, for everybody, if that's okay. Ms. Taylor, would you do that for us?
Sure. Madam Chair, members, the statement would read generally, comma, only elements of baseball fields, basketball courts, splash pads, playground equipment, and other recreational facilities and infrastructure that improve or enhance natural resources or users' experience with natural resources are eligible.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I would modify my amendment and incorporate that in for passage.
Okay. Just before we go, Commissioner Faber. Commissioner Faber?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. This has been a long discussion, two sessions now, and I guess it's time maybe I spoke up. First of all, I've been filling out RFPs about 40 years. I have, unfortunately, Senator Western, this isn't to dissuade you from the language you're talking about here. I don't think most people that this is going to make any difference anyway. We're not going to see any increase or decrease in large or small organizations, whatever applying. I just don't think it really matters, to be honest with you. It's not a persuade or dissuade. Either you look at a pot of money and say, I think I'll throw in an application, or I don't. And I'm a firm believer that perfect is the enemy of good. You will never get language that will say, please apply for money or please don't. It's still about not what's intended, but what's perceived by the person that reads and stuff. And we can't get perfect language in there. And so to draw this out any longer is pointless. I'm happy if we put the language in, but I just don't think it's going to have any major impact any which way. That's my thoughts. I'm happy to support it. I just don't think it's going to change anything, and it's not the RFP really that matters. So thanks for your time.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. All right, I think, did you have no, okay, I see you about to flick your switch. All right, I have to say that I'm conflicted. I don't know why we even need this in here. We've been able to fund great projects without it. And I would think it'd be a lot easier just not to have it in, because we have spent an enormous amount of time on splash pads and baseball fields. And I just am having a very difficult time seeing the environmental component, especially after this incredible passage of our Environment and Natural Resources Trust Fund Amendment. So that is my thought. So motion is up.
Amendment.
What is the amendment? Yeah, which is the Western Amendment. So Diana, if you would take charge here?
Gibson.
No.
Gibson, no. Hanson.
Yes.
Hanson, yes. Her.
Yes.
Her, yes. Acomb.
Yes.
Acomb.
Acomb, yes.
Acomb, yes. Albrecht.
Albright, yes.
Albrecht, yes. Backer is excused. Faber.
Faber, yes.
Faber, yes. Green.
Yes.
Green, yes. Heinzman is absent. Hollins.
Collins, yes.
Hollins, yes. Langseth.
Langseth, yes.
Langseth, yes. McEwen.
Yes.
McEwen, yes. Moore.
More yes.
Moore, yes. Pikel is excused. Putnam.
Yes.
Putnam, yes. Reese.
Yes.
Reese, yes. Westrom.
Yes.
Westrom, yes. Currently, there are 13 yes and 1 no.
All right. The amendment prevails. Now we're on to the motion.
Madam Chair.
What? Yes,
Madam Chair, I'd
Commissioner.
like to move to having voted in the affirmative, I would like to move to reconsider the strategic plan. Primary purpose is to incorporate this new language into the strategic plan.
I know. Okay. But he's already, yeah. Okay, let's go back to the main motion, and I think that was you, Albrecht, yeah, Commissioner Albrecht.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will re-up my motion to approve the RFP as amended.
Okay, questions, concerns? All right, Diana, let's take a vote.
Becca, it includes the caveat. A caveat for technical.
Oh, yeah, yes, okay. We do, I'm sorry, Commissioner Albrecht, we have to include some of those technical issues that staff brought up, so it's gonna get a little more difficult. Can you help us with that, staff?
Chair
No?
Gibson and Member Albright, it would be helpful if the motion could include an allowance for staff to make technical changes, please.
Thank you for that reminder, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Thank you
All
for
right.
that reminder. So the motion is to approve the RFP as amended, including the option for staff to make technical adjustments as needed.
Okay, well said. Comments, questions? Okay, please proceed, Diana.
Gibson,
Yes.
Gibson, yes. Hanson, Hanson, yes. Her,
Yes.
yes. Acom,
Acom, yes.
Acom, yes. Albrecht,
Albright, yes.
Albrecht, yes. Backer is excused. Faber,
Faber, yes.
Faber, yes. Green, Green, no. Heinzman is absent. Collins,
Collins, yes.
Collins, yes. Langseth,
Langseth, yes.
Langseth, yes. McEwen,
Yes.
McEwen, yes. Moore,
More yes.
Moore, yes. Pikel is excused. Putnam,
Yes.
Putnam, yes. Reese,
Yes.
Reese, yes. Westrom,
Yes.
Westrom, yes. Currently, there are 13 yes, 1 no.
Good, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Reese.
having voted in the affirmative, I would like to move to reconsider the strategic plan with the purpose of incorporating the language that was discussed, as agreed upon by a majority of the members. Thank you.
Okay, Representative Hanson.
I would oppose reconsideration for the strategic plan. We adopted that language in the RFP during the discussion in the negotiation, public negotiation with Senator Westrom said it was a one-time thing. The strategic plan is a 5-year. We have already adopted the strategic plan and I would oppose reconsideration.
Representative Hanson, is there a certain amount of votes that need to be required to add?
I believe it's a majority to reconsider.
Okay. All right, discussion on this reconsideration.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Reese.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think we've had this discussion and rather than continuing each year to draw this out, and I think there was some comments raised about it's not going to matter either way. Let's just fix the strategic plan, and I think we all had this discussion and lengthy discussion. It seemed like we had come to a reasonable agreement on the language, and I think it should be moved forward in the future RFPs. So let's fix it in the strategic plan, and that's the only reason. Again, I voted in favor of the strategic plan, and I would appreciate positive support on this. Thank you.
So to be clear, you're wanting to you want to add this language, or you're ready to forego? Do you want to have a motion? I'm trying to figure out if you want to bring this up again, or?
That's yes, ma'am. Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay.
I move to reconsider.
Concerns, Representative Westrom. Senator Westrom, sorry.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Wanted to clarify, I don't recall saying that I wanted it just to be a one-time thing, albeit this is the RFP going out, but I would support having this tweaked in the more permanent document of the strategic plan, but I hope people could find see reasonableness of that. And while it's fresh in all of our minds before we get into Christmas and holidays in 2025 and all the other water that flows over the dams of every one of our lives, now would be just an apropos time to do this and complete it. So I would support reconsidering and just make it quick. And I don't think it has to be drawn out or a long discussion.
Ms. Nash has some comments.
Chair Gibson and members, I just wanted to clarify. So this is a vote for reconsidering the strategic plan. So that requires a vote to reconsider. If it passes, then a motion to amend the strategic plan could be made. That would be voted on. And then a vote to reapprove the strategic plan with that amendment. So just so we're clear on what that procedure is.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, so we have to have a motion to vote for the strategic plan. Was that correct? To reconsider.
So reconsider.
Okay, so we need to have a motion to reconsider the strategic plan. Everybody understand? Commissioner Faber?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know if it's appropriate or not appropriate or correct or incorrect. I'll make a motion to not reconsider any change in the strategic plan language that's already been forwarded or motioned and passed.
Okay, so.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
But I
Madam
know,
Chair.
I'm just, hold on. I know you're gonna jump on me, so I just,
I don't know that he can make a motion to undo a motion.
Okay.
So I think he just can speak against that.
okay. Commissioner Faber, we can't take that up at this point. We need to vote on to retake it up first. Okay? All right, Representative Hansen.
So Commissioner Faber, if for your purposes, if you do not want to reconsider, then you would vote no on the Reese amendment.
Okay, that's what I want. That's what I asked.
Yep.
That's exactly what I asked. Listen, I don't want to get
All right.
hammered for parliamentary procedure. So I withdraw the motion. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Western. Senator Westrom?
I just forgot to drop my hand.
Okay. Commissioner Albrecht.
Thank you,
Commissioner
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just reviewing this section of the strategic plan to see, maybe it's already in there. And I kind of think it is already in there. If we look on page 8 of the draft strategic plan, which we've adopted, and look under section 5, which is the education and outdoor recreation, the same as the RFP. And we look at items 5.6, 5.7, 5.8. I think that we have already identified that we want to develop local or regional plans to enhance natural resource-based outdoor recreational opportunities across the state. We want to, one of the strategies for us is to collaborate or our applicants to collaborate or partner with Indigenous, local, BIPOC, and underserved communities to develop culturally relevant, inclusive, and accessible environmental natural resource or natural resource-based outdoor recreation programs, practices, curriculum, or facilities. That I think hits to Senator Herr's issue of accessibility and inclusiveness. And then number 5.8, design and or develop culturally relevant, accessible, resilient, and environmentally friendly outdoor recreation facilities and infrastructure, including recreation areas, which one might consider a baseball field, parks, trails, fishing piers, or shelters that create new natural resource-based experiences. So I think it would be redundant to add this into the strategic plan. I don't really believe that it's necessary. Thank you.
Commissioner Albrecht, did you hear anything about this? You've had, can't remember how many meetings, but I went to a couple of the meetings that, when we had public comment. Did you hear anything to this degree?
I don't recall it. I honestly do not recall. We had in person across the state, we had, I think, 5, maybe 4 or 5 different in-person things. And I didn't hear any comments like this. I heard, the need for water resource action and, climate change action, but I don't recall anything on this as part of that public discussion. Although we also had surveys, so those are all available to look at people's comments, but in my head, I can't think of any. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Reese.
Madam Chair, perhaps my recollection is incorrect, but I believe that this language was taken from the strategic plan, correct? Then it went into the RFP. It's not in the strategic plan currently.
Mike
the original.
Quintana, can you answer that?
Yes, Madam Chair, Commissioner Reese and members. That language was part of the strategic planning discussion, but it was only included in the RFP. The strategic plan only had the strategy, so that asterisk language was part of the strategic planning discussions, but only part of the RFP section of those discussions.
Okay. Thank you, Mike, or Mr. Capana. Thank you, Commissioner Albright. I'll withdraw my motion.
Okay. Commissioner Reese has withdrawn his motion. Okay, moving on, we will go to action number 8, the biennial report. It's online and we need a simple majority for this. Correct?
Yep, and
All right, Ms. Nash?
just a little bit more background. This is the biennial report is a report that's due to the governor and legislature by January 15th of every odd year. It summarizes the work accomplished by both the LCCMR and the Environment and Natural Resources Trust Fund over the last biennium. In your packets is the outline of the report and the status of our assembling it, but it's pending some items that you are acting on today, as well as some of the approvals of the final report. Final reports that are complete, projects completed this year. The chapters of the biennial report are each as defined in statute. And when we do finish this up and send it to the legislature, we will send it to all LCCMR members as well and put it on our website. While this is required and the contents are determined by statute, we still would appreciate approval of the outline and only a simple majority is needed.
Okay, Representative Hanson.
Adoption.
Okay. Comments, concerns, questions? Seeing none, let's proceed. Diana?
Gibson,
Yes.
Gibson, yes. Hanson,
Yes.
Hanson, yes. Her,
Yes.
yes. Acom,
Acom, yes.
Acom, yes. Albrecht,
Albright, yes.
Albrecht, yes. Backer is excused. Faber,
Faber, aye.
Faber, yes. Green,
Yes.
Green, yes. Heinzman, absent. Collins,
Collins, aye.
Collins,
Collins, aye.
Collins, yes. Langseth,
Langseth, yes.
Langseth, yes. McEwen,
Yes.
McEwen, yes. Moore,
Or yes.
Moore, yes. Pikel is excused. Putnam,
Yes.
Putnam, yes. Reese,
Reese, yes.
Reese, yes. Westrom, Westrom,
Yes.
Westrom, yes. Currently, there are 14 yes, 0 no.
All right. Report outline, motion prevails. All right, next is item 10, and it's the LCCMR calendar.
Michael Varian is good.
Yeah, okay, I'm gonna let Michael Varian take charge. Thank you, Michael.
Chair Gibson and members, excuse me. Next on the agenda is the adoption of the 2025 LCCMR calendar. At the previous meeting on November 13th, we included 2 calendar options and members had asked for a fall option to consider. In your packet, staff have provided a LCCMR 2025 calendar comparison, and it is a chart that includes the previous 2 options as well as 2 new options. The calendar comparison has on the first column includes a list of steps in the LCCMR process. The second column includes the minimum number of days needed between the critical steps.
Those critical steps are highlighted and include the number of days needed between those steps. The next columns include the 4 options. Respectively, there's a June and July option, which we previously looked at last meeting, and there's a new option for August and September. Each option includes a column with the dates for each step and column for the number of days between each of those critical steps. The options are primarily based on when the presentations occur. So we're looking at, do we want to do presentations in June? Do we want to do them in July, August, or September? You can see that for the most part, each of the options work, except that in August and September, those options do not provide an adequate amount of time for the final steps between the allocation meeting and the meeting to adopt the recommendation bill. What you don't see here is other related tasks to complete that final step, which includes peer review, financial capacity, and as well as the other workload, like final reporting that takes place during that time. There other kind of considerations here were that September option does include doing site visits before presentations. Staff were not sure if this would be a concern for members to visit locations that may have proposals under review. And we did look at an October option, but that had even less time to complete that final step. If there are any questions, Director Nash or I can respond, or if members would like, I could walk through this comparison in more detail.
Okay.
Otherwise, with that, Chair Gibson and members, if you'd like to discuss and select an option to adopt, you could do so at this time.
Seeing any, just to be clear, it seems as though the later in the summer options are a little more difficult for staff. And so I see, yeah, they are. So I think the fact that staff guides this process, we need to take that under consideration. So let's open a discussion. Representative Hansen.
Maybe to that point, so just so we get on the record, Ms. Nash, for staff, the June option, which is essentially what we did in 2024, is the easiest is the better option to move the tasks that the staff have. Is that correct?
Ms. Nash?
Chair Gibson, members, I think June is potentially easiest, but either June or July are work with ample time for each step.
Okay, questions? Anybody? Yes, Senator Green.
Seems to me we went through this last time. And obviously the later dates just don't work for staff to get everything done.
Correct.
And in the summertime, I don't know if you're gonna pick a month that's gonna be better than the other one, whether it's June or July. But June did seem to work for us. I just soon stick with what we had. It worked. I'm not sure what the advantage it would be to pushing it to the fall.
Good. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Commissioner Albrecht.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with Senator Green on this. I believe the June option worked pretty well last year. I prefer to get this going earlier rather than later. I would be open to either the June or July options, but I would vote no on the August or September ones.
Okay. Representative Hansen.
I think I almost heard Senator Green move June, but maybe my thing was off.
Senator
Yes,
Green?
yes, Madam Chair, I would move the June option for vote.
Okay. All right, yes, Senator Hurt.
Now, some legislative members will be up for renewal, right? At the end, our service ended in December.
Yep.
How that, intertwine with the June month, and will all of us still be there?
Yeah, so do you want to answer that, Ms. Nash?
Madam Chair and members, so the legislative members' terms are up at the end of this calendar year. And we usually hear the appointments for the legislative positions. I think it seems like it's handled through the same kind of process as your committee assignments are. And so usually in January or February, we find out who is joining. And then in a certain amount of time, I think maybe within 45 days, we have to have a meeting to elect chairs and co-chairs. And so it's helpful to have this calendar decided now because we won't be able to meet again. We won't know who members are. So it's nice to have that done and posted and planned for.
Yeah, I just thought, as long as we're not making personal date of our preference. So it's in case when some of them might not be here.
Yeah, that's a good point.
All right, so we need a Senator Westrom.
So, Madam Chair, I hate to get at odds with Senator Green, but and I'm saying that a little tongue in cheek, but just to kind of maybe bring a little historical perspective to this, I'm not quite sure why we're hearing that staff can't get it done, because for most of the LCCMR commission, in the first many years I sat on it, it was October when we were meeting and some in September. And then we were doing the appropriations and the approval in December, and it did get done. So I think if there's a will, there's a way. Might be rearranging something else. I don't know what's kind of gotten rearranged to fill the fall time that we used to do all the time, with the idea that coming out of legislative session, at least for 10 of us legislative members, June gets to be a crunch. And so that's to kind of Senator Green, your question. That's what I've experienced and found, and I think most legislators would. Everything from family trips to private business obligations to district meetings to summer enjoyment that people like to do in Minnesota are all what compete with the time in June and July. And so historically, what we had been doing was, at least in the house, when with the House being up every 2 years, the election year was typically earlier summer because they had the elections in September, October wasn't as good for the House members that are up for election. So there was kind of an alternating pattern that went. The other thing, and so that's kind of the historical perspective. So it does seem like there's a precedent that things could get done if we went back to that model. Maybe something shifted that I'm not remembering offhand, but I think just for the record, so everybody kind of knows, that is what the LCCMR did for many years. And I just find that now this year, I would say it's got a higher than average chance that we might be in a special session in June. So that's going to be the other aspect. And then LCCMR usually gets canceled or pushed off. And so that's the other aspect of June. Every time has always had that dilemma. We've had a few times where we've had to push things off or change dates because of a special session. Not too many years, but there has been that situation too. So that's what I'd caution us. I guess if it is going to be in the summer, I'd probably say then June, Senator Green's motion makes sense. I still prefer schedule wise. It's easier for legislators coming out of session to catch their breath and have a little time to review and not be, whipsawed right back into meetings. But it is possible it's been done. So I just say that from perspective. Historically, for anybody that hasn't looked into it that close, September, October is probably more what I would push us to do and revert back to that. And one last thing for historical note, the LCCMR used to just meet every other year and allocate a proposal or an appropriations bill every budget year. So we could consider going back to that as well. in lining up with the biennial budget process, but just, hope that's helpful insight for anybody that hasn't looked into it closer.
Thank you, Senator Westrom. I think I still beat you on being on the LCCMR.
You do. I can't tell if you have more gray hair or me, Madam Chair, but.
Well, if I see you in person, we can compare. But we have done all of it, and as you mentioned, but we have done the Junes the last few years. And I need to take in consideration, I think all of us need to take in consideration the staff. And so I appreciate Senator Green's motion. With that, Commissioner Faber, did you have something to add?
Yes, Madam Chair, I was just gonna say the same thing myself. This year I'll be gone 10 days, probably 2-3 weeks to Sweden for an international moose conference in Sweden. I get to come to the homeland for me, but I still think June and July are the months that are best. So I would go along with and strongly support the motion by Senator Green for June or July. Thank you.
Okay, all right. I think enough comments. We'll take a vote. Diana?
Gibson,
Yes.
Gibson, yes. Hanson,
Yes.
Hanson, yes. Her,
Yes.
yes. Acom,
Yes.
Acom, yes. Albrecht,
Albright, yes.
Albrecht, yes. Backer is excused. Faber,
Faber, yes.
Faber, yes. Green, Green, yes. Heinzman is absent. Collins,
Collins, aye.
Collins, yes. Langseth,
Langseth, yes.
Langseth, yes. McEwen, McEwen. Moore,
More yes.
Moore, yes. Michael is excused. Putnam, Putnam. Reese,
Yes.
Reese, yes. Westrom,
No.
Westrom, no. Currently, there are 11 yes, 1 no.
Thank you. Motion prevails. Thank you. Now we're going to go back to item 5. The thank you for retiring members.
Chair,
I'm sorry,
it's
Commissioner
Dr. Bill.
Faber.
Thank you, ma'am. I was just gonna ask, I know staff is busy, but you will get out then this schedule quickly. I'm in the process of planning my travels to Sweden, and the sooner I get that, the better it'd be. I have a little bit of leeway, so, and I know it's not all about me. I understand that. I mean, for my own sake, so I can plan accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you. And we want the moose to be happy as well. So, all right, staff, you will do so. All right, she's shaking her head. Okay, this is a little awkward, but we're thanking retirement members. We wanted to thank Senator Kelly, who was a great honor to work with. If anybody like to, hope maybe she's listening in, I don't know. I worked with her. I wish her well on her next adventure. And then Senator Dietzig, who has been with us for a long time, and I wish her well with her health, and I really enjoyed working with her. And we had always good friendly disagreements and friendly agreements. So she was a real joy to work with. So with that, I'd like to definitely thank those two. I don't know the process here. I have been trying to stay away from it, so.
Madam Chair, I don't know the process either, but we would like to present you with this beautiful plaque that is made out of sustainable wood in recognition of your service and contributions to protecting, conserving, preserving, and enhancing our air, water, land, fish, wildlife, and other natural resources. Nancy, you have been here since the beginning of the LCCMR. And I want to thank you for your work, for being a chair, for being an ally to me. And thank you again for your contributions.
Good. Thank you. I greatly appreciate it. And thank you to all of you for showing up and being here. We've had great discussions. I am so proud that we passed this amendment with such amazing support. in November that really speaks well of the good work that we've been doing here. And I have to say a special thank you to staff. They work so hard, and I hope that you will respect their deadlines and their needs. Sometimes we hear it as co-chairs that you don't hear, and we try to do what we can. Representative Heinzman said last meeting that we want to help make this process work, and I think staff is part of that, a very important part of that process. So thank you, everybody. It's been fun and enriching. I'm going to miss it a little bit, but with that, thank you.
Madam Chair, I learned so much from you, especially when we take the field trip to the Wolf Center. So I hope that you will continue serving as a member of LCCMR. And my question was that I'm complimenting you here, but I was wondering, are we allowed to applaud?
Oh, I don't know what the LCCMR guidelines are.
So I'd like to applaud to all the three members. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I learned a lot on that trip too, from you. So, all right, Representative Hanson.
Just to extend the thank you and congratulations for the work you've done for Senator Dietzig and Congresswoman-elect Morrison. You know, every member provides input and brings something to this process. And the product we have is stronger from your involvement year after year, and Senator Dietzig and Congresswoman-elect Morrison and everyone else here. So thank you, and wish you the best in the future.
Thank you very much. All right, no public comment. All right. Did you? What?
Just double checking that there was no public comment.
Oh, yeah, no public comment. All right, with that, the meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much. Happy Happy holidays.